Mazzell is a former United States Marine. Now he's a detective at the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office, and he's also running as a Republican candidate for the Berkeley County Coroner's Office. I talk one-on-one with Danny for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Danny Mazzell, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you very much, sir, for having me.
You're very welcome. I know that you are a former United States Marine, and you currently serve as a detective at the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office. Say hello, Sheriff. Sheriff Lewis, I know him very well. And obviously, you're currently assigned to the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DA task force. You are a graduate of Stratford High School, and obviously, you're heavily involved in the Berkeley County community. Now, obviously, you want to become the next Berkeley County Coroner. Tell me, why, Danny? Why Berkeley County Coroner? Why now?
I want to become the Berkeley County Coroner because I want to bring compassionate care to the families. I want to, build a stronger relationship with the local law enforcement agencies and local first responders, not just law enforcement, but firefighters, EMS. I want to bridge the gap between those two and, have a strong working relationship with those individuals. I have a strong passion also for working overdose deaths. I want to help the community with some of the investigations that I have a specialty in investigating the deaths. And we can work with law enforcement to help them with that, and we can also help them, rule and cause a manner of death more effectively, even in homicide cases, because I have, a background with working homicides also.
Right. Yes, sir. How do you bridge that gap right now between the law enforcement? How many gaps are there to close?
Well, I can't put a number on gaps. I just know that I feel like I can, bring us closer because I've worked in law enforcement. I've been on that side. And if I get in there, I already have strong relationships, but I believe I can make them stronger and bring us closer together and bring real change to the, to the county for the coroner's office. And I can just help with a lot of the municipalities, not just the sheriff's office, but we have a lot of law enforcement municipalities in the county, and we can help them with their investigations. It doesn't have to just stop with cause and manner. We can help assist them in their conviction process. So we can also have transparency with families along the way. That's a big thing I want to have, is transparency also.
And speaking of which, how transparent is the Berkeley County Coroner's Office?
I don't know totally because I'm not in that office, but I will say that along this campaign trail, I've had a lot of families and stories that I've read about old past cases that they wish that they could have a little bit more transparency. And I think that if I'm get elected into this office, I will be more transparent. And that you have to be transparent even if your office makes a mistake. You have to be able to own that. You have to be able to say, you know what, maybe me or my deputy coroner might have made a wrong decision, and you can't be afraid to attack it head on and maybe make a change. And we have to be willing to review cases over again if we make a mistake. And that's one big thing that I would be willing to do if I was elected.
And what other changes need to be made inside the Berkeley County Coroner's Office right now?
Definitely need growth. They've been operating with 3 deputy coroners since around 2010. The population back then was roughly in 160,000 range. Here we are later, 2022. We've had about a 35 to 38% growth. We're around 230, maybe 240 now. These are just approximate numbers. Not perfect, but approximate that I know. And we need at least 3 or 4 more deputy coroners over the next 3 or 4 years, in my opinion, to serve the citizens better and more effectively. I do think that people in the coroner's office work hard, but they're just understaffed is the main problem. I just also want to create a reserve deputy program that will be free of taxpayer dollars, and we can properly train and vet individuals to do those jobs, just like reserve cops, just like reserve firefighters. And there are always people out there that are willing to do it. So I'd like to try to pioneer that program and that will give us an additional manpower also.
And how many of those reserves are you looking for?
Anybody, to be honest. I mean, it could go from 1 to 10. I mean, if you get it properly vet them and they're properly trained, and you do a background check on them, I would put them to the same background as my deputy coroners, and I would take as many as I can get. To be honest with you.
And going back to growth, because everybody knows Berkeley County is growing, but what is that pace of growth right now in Berkeley County?
Like I said, the last numbers I was able to look up, It was about a 35% increase since 2010, and it's not going to stop. They're continuing to build houses everywhere, even around where I live. You just see neighborhoods popping up everywhere. So it's continuing, and it's not going to stop. And I've addressed that when I've spoke along the campaign trail at different meetings, that the growth is not going to stop, and we have to grow the coroner's office, and just to serve the citizens better. And we can do that with county council and the supervisor. We could do it. It just takes time, and we got to work hard at it.
Yeah, and I just had Johnny Cribb on Quintin's Post Office a couple of weeks ago. He's a great guy as well. But let me ask you this. Okay, how do you grow the Berkeley County's coroner's office with smart growth?
You just got to tackle it, in my opinion, very, very, slowly. You can't, I know I can't just go in there and ask for the world my first year in, but I'm willing to take it step by step. And if you can progress from year 1 to year 4 and grow the coroner's office, that'll be a great, great thing. And it just takes going in there and having meetings with county council, and it takes talking to the supervisor and working with them. And if you just take it year by year, I really believe it could be done. That's the way I'm going to approach it.
What has been that year-to-year growth inside the coroner's office? I know they've only, have at least 3 corners, but what has been the pace over the past 10 years?
There hasn't been any. I don't know why. I can't really answer that question. But like I said, they've had the same amount of deputy coroners since 2010. I don't know if it's that they haven't asked for more or they haven't just been denied. I don't know. I just know that I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to try my best to, move forward and build it and grow it and continue to move forward for the citizens.
Now, how many corners, Danny, are there right now in the state of South Carolina?
Say that again, sir?
Yeah, how many corners are there right now currently in South Carolina?
Well, there should be approximately 48. I'd hope every county in the state should have a voted-in coroner. It's an elected position in this state. Right. So, that should be, every county should have one.
Should it be an elected position in the future?
I think so. I do think it should be. I do think you should have, either a medical background or law enforcement background, which I do, or have served as a deputy coroner. I think I don't have a problem with the, qualifications for it. I don't have that, but I do think it should continue to be elected because it's such a very powerful position, and it's a position that, you have to take it very, very serious. I mean, you're dealing with families, and at the worst time of their life, and elected officials are very, they hold a lot of power, and and it's something that you have to look at, and I think it should stay elected. I really do, because you leave it up to the people at that point. You're not just getting somebody handpicked in that might be liked by some politician or a single person. You're getting voted by the people. So I believe that.
And I know that the coroner's office, Danny, has to determine how and why a person actually has died. How do you find their voice?
Say that again, sir?
Yeah, I know that the coroner's office has to determine how and why a person has died. How do you find their voice?
I just, say that again, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah. I know that the coroner's office has to determine how and why a person has obviously passed away. How exactly do you find their voice, the person who's passed away?
Yeah, you have the cause and manner of death. That's true. You just, you got homicide, you got suicide, you got accidental, natural, undetermined. You just have to try to speak for them. You have to try to speak for the family, and the way you do that is say you have a homicide or an overdose death. If you work hard with law enforcement and maybe later on down the line can bring a conviction, and you can help them, and that's something I can do as a coroner because I have that experience. I can do the cause and manner, but then get with the detectives and help them further their case. So I can look out for them on the investigative side is what I'm trying to say. I could further investigate more than just cause and manner of death. I know, and I have the experience to help work a homicide case, and I know that it'll be assigned to a detective at a police department or sheriff's office, but with my experience, I can be more involved, my people can be more involved, and we can help them in that journey. And that's something I think in the past they just haven't done as far as, going to that extra level, which I'm going to be willing to do with my experience.
And what other extra levels should they go to as far as the coroner's office?
Well, like I just said, I'll give you an example. The Post and Courier just posted an article a couple of weeks ago on a case that I worked. Berkeley County Coroner's Office did a investigation of an overdose, and the overdose was what the cause and manner was. And when we took that case, it was last May when it happened. A young man died in May of last year. I started looking at the case of June of last year, and we just got this guy federally indicted back in the 23rd or 24th of May. It took a year-long investigation, which was very, long and exhausting, but in the end, it was rewarding. We were able to have this guy indicted for the overdose death, and the federal government is the only statute they're the only ones that have a statute that you can indict somebody on. And that's another thing I want to do, is work with some state senators and legislation to bring new laws to South Carolina to hold drug dealers responsible for when they distribute drugs, and it kills an individual, that we can indict them. We don't have to go to a federal level. That's another thing that I want to work with to, hopefully have a new law come in the future.
And what state representatives and state senators in your county are you currently working with?
I'm not working with anybody specifically. I do know some of them.
Right.
And I don't work directly with them, but if I get in office, I would want to work harder with them, because I would be elected at that point.
And what current laws do you adopt or obviously endorse right now?
I'm hoping that they're trying to pass a fentanyl law through the House right now, and I really hope that goes through, because that'll help with, not so much with the death part of it, because that still doesn't cover that statute, but what it will cover is stricter laws and rules and punishment toward people who are distributing that drug fentanyl. And
you talked a little bit about earlier, but obviously there's a lot of homicides that are going on across Tri-County as of right now. Homicides, suicides, accidents, unknown causes. Which one was the biggest in Berkeley County in 2021?
In 2021, I think you always got to go with natural. The natural deaths are going to be the bigger one, in the bigger scheme of things, because you just have more natural deaths than you do other tragic deaths. You do. That's just a fact. Between like hospice and natural, those are going to be your two highest ones.
And let me ask you this too. How do you, Danny, approach a crime scene when there are multiple deaths involved, especially with victims?
Well, you just have to go out there, and first of all, when you go on a crime scene, yes, the coroner's office does take over once they get there, but you just got to hope that the sheriff's office or local entity has set up a good perimeter, set up a good crime scene, that nobody has disturbed it. And and 9 out of 10 times they get there before us. That's what a lot of people don't understand, that in the general public. If you have a shooting, for instance, that law enforcement's going to get there before you. So you just got to hope that the training that they have received will, preserve that crime scene. And then when you get there, you take over and you take control.
Now, and speaking of deaths and obviously crimes, how many deaths were actually by suicide in Berkeley County in 2021?
I do not have that information with me at this time. I don't work in the office, so I just didn't have that information. If I was in the office, I definitely would have had that and been prepared for that question. But it's just, I'm not in the office at the time.
Let me ask you this, Dan. What were the number of pandemic coroner case responses in 2021?
I do not know that question either. Like I said, because I wasn't, currently working there. So.
No worries. Let me ask you this, Dan. What state-of-the-art imaging machine would your office be using to enhance comprehensive forensics investigations?
Repeat that one more time, sir.
Yes, sir. What state-of-the-art imaging machine would your office be using to enhance comprehensive forensics investigations?
I would, I don't know. I'd have to look in that, research that when I get in there. But I'd have to, reach out to other elected coroners and go for their advice, which I'm not going to be afraid to do. I'm going to reach out and ask, different offices what did they do, especially in the bigger counties. I'm going to, I'll reach out to, Charleston County, Richardson County, Lexington. I'll reach out to the bigger counties and, get some advice for them. So.
And if you were coroner in 2021, Danny, how would you have provided COVID-19 post-mortem exposure risk awareness, post-mortem infection control, and body search guidance to staff and death investigators, funeral homes, first responders, and healthcare facilities?
Say that again, sir. I'm so sorry.
So no worries. I know I don't have my earbuds today, but if you were a coroner in 2021, how would you have provided COVID-19 postmortem exposure risk awareness, postmortem infection control, and body surge guidance to staff and death investigators, funeral homes, and first responders, and as well as healthcare facilities?
Well, I know COVID is like rapidly changing all the time, and you know, you'd have to take a very careful approach with that because of that. And I would have reached out to FEMA. I would have reached out to our bigger state entities for assistance and help and guidance on that, just because they would more trained, and that's their line of work. And I would have took the advice of the bigger entities from the federal government, state government, and would have approached it with extreme caution, just because of the changing nature of it all the time.
Let me ask you this: because of COVID and between COVID-19, homicides and drug-related deaths, how has the coroner's office workload actually increased?
It has, because the numbers are going up every year, unfortunately, especially with overdoses, and we have a opioid epidemic that we're trying to fight, and it's a never-ending battle. But they're going to continue, unfortunately, to go up probably, and a lot of people are going through depression. A lot of people have substance abuse. COVID brought a lot of depression to people, and it's a pandemic that we've never seen or been through. I know you haven't, I haven't, and and it's just, I think when you have mental health issues, when you have depression, it leads to more suicides. It leads to more overdoses, and I think we can try to work with a little bit more mental awareness in the county, and I'd be willing to partner with other entities to do that.
What current public and private partnerships would you be in favor for as far as dealing with these mental health issues?
I don't specifically have an answer for that right now, but I would be willing to help out and listen and talk to different organizations and see what we can do and where we could go with it.
Now, I know that the National Missing and Unidentified Person System is a resource for anyone missing a family member, and is also actually used for forensic investigations if a deceased person is actually unidentified. How many times has the current coroner's office used that system, and what training would you offer to other agencies if elected?
The answer that I don't have that statistic with me, sir, because like I said, I'm not in the office and I wouldn't know that. But I'd be willing to send my deputy coroners to any advanced training that they would want to go to, and my reserve deputy coroners. I'm a big proponent of training, and our budget was approximately. I did check into that, and I was able to find out the budget last year was around $813,000.
Right.
If that increases, we can add training into that budget, and when it increases, we'll have better opportunities for the individuals to be trained. I'm a big proponent of training. I've had a lot of it in my career.
And when you looked at that budget, Danny, what were the budget expenditures for the coroner's office?
If I had to look back at it, I don't know as far as the overall, the way it's written looks. It's a difference when you look at it. It's like 200,000 and it says 700,000, but I would want to say without salaries, it might have been around 200 some thousand, somewhere around there. But the total was 813.
Was there any money really left in there, in the budget, that is, for mental health programs?
I do not know that, sir. I wouldn't know that. I'd have to review it.
Okay.
More in depth.
Yes, sir. And I know, obviously, you mentioned this earlier, and they deal with a lot in your day-to-day job as a detective. But drug abuse, obviously, is a major problem here in the Low Country.
Yes,
what are you seeing as far as the new problems and the new trends in Berkeley County?
Just same thing. Like I said, just opioids is very, very critical right now. You have people out there selling illicit counterfeit drugs. It's starting to reach the younger crowd. Hitting them very hard in that young age group. Statistically, DA told us not too long ago. I think it's between the ages of 18 to 48 or 49. That is the number one killer of males in this country is opioids, from the ages of 18 to around upper 40s. A lot of people don't know that. That's the number one thing that's taking individuals out, males.
And in your research and talking with those folks at the DEA, what else did you discover that really is underlining and people are not really talking about when it comes to those drug trends and problems?
Yeah, we're trying to protect children is the main thing right now. And what a lot of people also don't understand is the drug trade leads to other stuff like human trafficking. It leads to Like I said, that's a big problem that a lot of people don't talk about. It's kept quiet, but the drug trade leads to other violence. It leads into violent crimes such as homicides. It leads into overdose deaths. It affects the ports, where the ports authority and the ports where we live. But like I said, the drug trafficking problem we have, it leads to other things. It's just not drug distribution. It leads to, like I said, violent crimes, shootings, stabbings, homicides. It leads to sexual crimes. It turns into a very broad spectrum, and I think a lot of regular civilians that are in law enforcement just don't understand the underlying path that it takes and leads to other things.
And what do you? Let me put the coroner's office to the side for a second. But as the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office, what do you all anticipate in the future with these new trends?
You never know with trends, because they can, sometimes they can go in another direction. Sometimes they can go, left, right. Like about 10 years ago, for instance, when I was a drug agent back then, methamphetamine was our biggest problem. Opioids wasn't really a problem back then. But that's what I mean by trends can change. Different types of drug problems can change. And my experience will help prepare my office for that. Like I said, I know I'm running for coroner, and I know we investigate cause of manner of death, but I want my deputy coroners to have a broad set of training skills. I want to send them as much training as I can. I want them to be well-rounded. I don't want them just to be, hey, we do cause of manner of death, and that's it. I want them to be able to have better qualifications, even for themselves, to where maybe one day, if they want to run for coroner 10, 15, 20 years from now, they might be able to do that. I want them to, not have tunnel vision when they go on crime scenes, or not, when they go deal with an individual. They need to, I want them to be trained in interview and interrogation. I want them to do forensics training. I want them to, go to homicide investigator courses, Detective 1 courses, same courses that they offer law enforcement. They can go to the Criminal Justice Academy and get that same training. And I want to have all my people trained to the best of their ability.
Yes, sir. And speaking of preparation, Danny, how do you want the coroner's office to say partner with the emergency management and public safety in support of preparing for and responding to, God forbid, a complex coordinated terrorist attack?
I would definitely have to use their resources. Like you said, you have to get with FEMA. You have to be with Berkeley County. With the county, my experience working with law enforcement will help me with that, and experience being in the military will help me with that. I've served a couple years in Iraq. From 06 to 08, I was over in Iraq, and I've been in war. I've been in critical situations where I know that you have to get together and pull together resources to deal with big things like that. So that's my experience would help.
And have you developed a plan, without giving out any details, on conducted training and exercises and purchase equipment necessary to support this type of incident? God forbid it happening in Berkeley County.
I have some ideas, and I would get with my emergency management division, and we would follow their guidelines, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. They take over at that time. When it comes to a big event like that, you go along with emergency management and follow the plans that they have set forth. And we can, always conduct training and drills. We can do stuff like that, and I'll be willing to participate with them in any drills like that. Like, I've been involved with active shooter drills with the sheriff's office. I've been involved, in different training of that kind of, magnitude.
Yes, sir. And going back, obviously, to autopsies and forensic sciences and all that other stuff. In 2022. What would the out-of-county autopsy fees for Berkeley County?
I'm not sure, because like I said, I wasn't in office for that, sir. I'm not sure. I do know that they utilize the Medical University of South Carolina. I do know that.
Right. Were there any out-of-county toxicity fees by chance?
I'm not sure about that. I know that when they do toxicology, I know the deputy coroners do send that to SLED. But I know if there's an autopsy done at MUSC, they also do their own toxicology. So that probably would be put into the cost of the autopsy.
Well, let me ask you this. Obviously, in the coroner's office, you also have to determine the causes of death, manner of death, and there are obviously a lot of ramifications. What are the ramifications for individuals and families?
Could you repeat that one more time, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm so sorry about the traffic out here, but
That's all.
obviously, in the coroner's office, you also have to determine the causes of death, that is, manner of death, and obviously there are a lot of ramifications. What are the ramifications for individuals and families as you see it?
Well, when investigating cause and manner of death, it's very important, and that's why during this campaign I ran on, I want to have more effective cause and manner of death. You're affecting people's livelihoods as far as insurance policies, possibly. If a loved one dies, and that decision that you make and that ruling that you make, it could affect them on that end. It could also affect somebody, for instance, if you rule in a case in the wrong way, and then later on down the line, you have to figure out, wait a minute, we might have not made the correct decision. But where you got to go with that, sir, is this: you have to be transparent. You have to be willing to, if I make a mistake or one of my deputy coroners make a mistake in cause and manner of death, we have to be able to be transparent and go, okay, we need to look at this again, and if we have to change it, we need to do what's right for the families.
And if you were to be elected to a coroner, what exactly would you do on day one?
Day one, I would start hitting the ground running hard. I'm going to be a working coroner. I've told people that along this trail, that I will not sit behind a desk. I will be a working man. I've been working hard my whole career. I've been what they call a grunt. I'll work hard. I'll be out there with my people, and I'll be out there learning. I'm going to learn a lot with this job if I'm elected. I'm going to learn a lot, and my experience and qualifications in law enforcement will help me, but I'm going to grow as a person too.
Danny Mazzell, thank you so much for your time, and again, welcome to Quintin.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome anytime.